So Jesse Harding, good to have you today. Um, I was told about you or recommended that I interview you because you are a serial entrepreneur. And you even sent me some of your projects, and I was like, holy cow, this guy has a myriad of interests and is unafraid to pursue them. And it was so cool to skim through some of the things that you've done, from artwork to games to um, coding here at Weave. You are one of our product managers. I'd love, though, if you gave us like a brief uh, history of these creative works of yours, your entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I think for me, ever since I was a little kid, like I just loved making stuff. Uh,
Um,
and so I think that's where it started. I early in my career, I was a designer, and that kind of and in high school, I thought I was going to go into art. So, but that idea of like making having an idea, and then kind of iterating on it, getting feedback, and then actually creating something that other people can experience or enjoy. Like to me, that's kind of what makes me an entrepreneur is that side of things. So I've
the process.
yeah, the process of like finding a problem, and it doesn't have to be like a huge painful problem. Like for the games that you mentioned that I've worked on, like just obviously the problem there is just something fun to do, so it doesn't have to be a big problem, but I love just taking that and thinking of creative ways to solve it, and then actually like getting something all the way done and in the hands of other people. So that's each of my projects has kind of started out that way, where I'm doing something that I enjoy, and then I'm getting it to the point where I can share it with others, and that's where I really love it, is seeing other people enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and I love how you said that. Like, it doesn't have to be, what was the word you said? It doesn't have to be like a bad, a terrible problem.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I mean,
like,
there's obviously like there's room for that too in
right.
entrepreneurship, right? But
Oh,
I think
100%.
like yeah, I think it just coming up with a reason why the thing that you're building needs to exist.
Yeah. Like
So
establishing the pain, but like the pain doesn't have to be necessarily life altering. And to your
right.
point, I wanted to bring up Squidface
Okay.
because amidst social distancing and stuff like that, I think, at least I'm going to say this about myself, I guess. One of the last problems, if I were to try and be an entrepreneur right now, a traditional entrepreneur, I guess, um, one of the last problems I would think of solving is how am I going to play games with my friends?
Yeah.
But it is, and guess what? I I use a product like Squidface, if you've heard of Jackbox TV.
Uh-huh.
And I am dying for more things like that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how many problems are there that aren't these like painful, life-altering problems, but are still in dire need of a solution that people want, people ache for?"
Totally. Yeah, this squid face is a funny story. So we
Yeah,
a
explain the product a little bit too.
what's that?
Explain the solution.
Yeah. Okay. So squid face actually is similar to Jackbox, if you've done Jackbox TV before, and that's actually kind of where we started, was this idea that Jackbox TV, you play on a computer, you can plug the computer into your TV, and it's kind of a game show that everybody plays on their phones. Doesn't require an app install. And so everybody can, if you have a bunch of people over at your house, you just throw it up on your TV and everybody can play. So a buddy of mine who's a developer and I kind of thought like it would be cool if you could do that without needing the TV. Like what if we're at lunch and we just wanted to play a game really quickly on our phones, didn't want to make everyone install an app, but could spin up a game and just play. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where the idea started. And when you talk about like the big problems versus small problems, so this same friend and I had actually started a different project that was around helping people with side hustles manage their finances. Um,
Yes.
and so
That was backlit, right?
we were no, so this was actually what it was called, Indigo Money. Um,
Oh, a different one. Okay.
yeah, there's a long list.
Hundred.
It's kind of an addiction, I guess. But so we started working on that, and we actually got in to go out and pitch to Y Combinator um, about a year and a half ago. Went out and did that. We didn't get into Y Combinator. Um, and as we came back from that, we kind of like reassessed and said like, okay, this is a big problem. It needs to be solved. It was helping, if you have multiple side hustles, how do you manage your money, especially if it's coming into one bank account? So super good problem. Something that needs to be solved. But we kind of just looked at it and said, do we really want to solve this problem? And do we want to spend the next 5 years like completely dedicated to this? And we both uh, looked at each other and decided we didn't. Uh, and then, well, what problem do we want to solve? And so we started talking about different ideas, and this idea with Jackbox, where we had both played Jackbox quite a bit, and thought, man, what if you could do that anywhere? What if you didn't have to be in front of a TV? And so that's how Squidface was born.
Oh, I love it. I think something that can be really hard for the entrepreneurial at heart is to quit. Is to
Yeah,
or to feel like you're quitting, right?
yeah.
But as you told that, I was reminded of this exercise that Warren Buffett famously did with, I believe it was his pilot, where he had to make a list of all of the things he wanted to accomplish in his life. And he said, great. And it was 20 plus things.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with this?
Yeah,
And he says, okay, circle your top three. And as soon as he'd finished that, I said, okay, I want you to avoid the rest like the plague.
yeah,
Don't touch them. Do focus on those three. Give them all of your attention. When you've accomplished one, great. Move on to the next.
yeah. Yeah, I think one of the curses, I guess, of being entrepreneurial is you usually have too many ideas.
Yeah.
And so you're usually always thinking of like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. Um, and so one of the things I've used to kind of decide whether I'm actually going to work on something or not is, does it actually fit within my wheelhouse? So is it something that that I don't, for lack of a better phrase, like, am I worthy to solve this? Has my life experience put me in a unique place to solve this problem? And if it hasn't, like, I might come up with a really good medical idea, but I'm not a doctor and I don't have any experience with that. So don't focus on that. Focus on something in your wheelhouse, and then, like you said, get it get it done, because it's really easy. I find even with Chicken Time Warp, which is a card game that I made. I launched that on Kickstarter, and it funded on Kickstarter, and I fulfilled all the orders, and I put it on Amazon, and it sells on Amazon now. And it was kind of like, okay, cool, now I can move on to the next thing. And I started working on another project, and then I realized I'm not done with Chicken Time Warp. Like, I need to focus on getting this out there and sold and get it reviewed. And there's so much more that you can do that kind of, if you're an idea person, it's easy to just skip to the next thing without really focusing on making the first thing successful.
Right. By doing all aspects of the business as it
Right.
relates to that idea. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's a book called The Spark and the Grind, that I'd highly recommend to creative and entrepreneurial people, that just talks about like, those sparks, those ideas. It's really easy to just kind of thrive on the sparks, but you also have to do the grind of actually getting stuff out there and getting it done, and kind of the balance that you need to be able to do that.
Yeah. So then where would you say, I'm curious now, where you still pursue something because you have an interest and a passion in there, but it's not necessarily in your wheelhouse yet? Have you ever done something like that where you've had that passion and maybe you've built that interest up over years until you've worked yourself into or worked that into your wheelhouse?
For sure. And I think get backlit, the one that you mentioned, is an example of that. So That's a founder that I'm working with who spent most of his career in live events, and I don't have any experience in live events. But what he was doing was really interesting to me. He does casting for the Super Bowl halftime show. He's done it for the Emmys for kind of like the entertainment aspect of that. And he's trying now to create a software as a service company that kind of leverages all of the tools he's built for himself. And so that's not an area that I'm experienced in. So what I do in that scenario is I find the overlaps. If you think of like a Venn diagram, find the areas that I can help. And so, for example, with product management experience, I've been able to help him identify the areas where his product's strong and the areas where we can make it stronger. So I think like use your existing experience to see where the overlap is, and then yeah, for sure you can kind of make that wheelhouse bigger and include more and more experience.
Yeah. Um, so when it comes to these ideas too, and I kind of want to change gears a little bit back to something we were talking about a little bit earlier, is the idea of the fact that not every pain has to be this massive thorn in our side.
Hmm.
Um, but I think if we want to look at COVID-19 a little more optimistically, which I think will benefit all of us mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, all of the above, right? I think 2020 could be the best breeding ground for entrepreneurs because we're seeing so many problems that we've never seen before. Dealing with pains we haven't ever had to deal with in these exact ways. That game situation is a great one, right?
Hmm.
Where I'm not even a big game player, but I'm social and I
Yeah.
miss that. And so having something as the skeleton for my digital social interactions has been something I've really come to latch onto, even though I didn't like games so much before.
Right.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you think about like creatively solving problems or coming up with ideas that are really out of the box.
Yes, I think I'm glad you mentioned the COVID-19, like how like this will first off, we will get back to normal, but normal will be slightly different, right? And I think there are tons of opportunities there to figure out how will normal be different. We'll probably touch less things in public. So what does that actually mean? There are lots of uh, movie theaters, restaurants that use touch screens. Are those going to change? How will that change? Does voice become more a part of our interaction where we used to touch things? I saw a really cool example where someone had just mocked up putting elevator buttons, the up and down buttons, on the ground so that you kick them instead of pushing them. So I mean, I think looking at and if you think of other times like this, so 9/11 is an example. Like
Yeah.
how did things change after 9/11? The the recession in 2008 and 2009 really is what spawned the idea of crowdsourcing. So Uber, Airbnb, those were all born during that time, which was I've got a car, can I get paid to drive around? I've got a house, can I get paid to have somebody stay in it? And those were born out of the recession. So I think looking at like how is this going to change our world, and then what are new problems or new exciting opportunities in that new world that we could take advantage of and create solutions for.
Yeah. Um, it is interesting to think back on 9/11 and see how one day, a series of hours
Hmm.
impacted travel, more or
Yeah,
less one industry, right?
yeah.
And I keep on thinking about how long this is lasting and how many industries it is affecting. That multiplicative, mul- that factor,
Uh-huh.
right, multiplied. I like to make up words. Just shows like how much more, and again, I kind of want to turn this more optimistically, how much more opportunity there
Yeah.
is out there where we have, and this gets me and breaks my heart, keeps me up at night, where we have 22 million people who have filed for unemployment.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just getting emotional just saying it out loud.
Yeah.
um, but how primed I think so many of those individuals are to take advantage of the situation, and how I want to help inspire them to do that, to take the leap that maybe COVID has given them a little nudge to do. What, either way, even, I mean, usually there's the fear of leaving behind a job with security before becoming entrepreneurial in a
Hmm.
traditional sense, right? A lot of people no longer have that fear because
Yeah.
they've been
Yeah.
pushed out, not of their own accord. Um, do you have any thoughts or advice on how to overcome those fears to push through and really let your creative genius soar?
Yes, I think the thing that keeps a lot of us from doing that is the fear that what we're going to make won't be perfect.
Mm,
And so that's the first thing I would say is like whether you're impacted in that way where you are unemployed right now or furloughed, or or if not, if you're one of the lucky ones and you still have a place of employment, uh, don't let the fear of imperfection stop you from creating. So get and so like if you have an idea, get it out there in some form or function. So and that's one of the things as product managers that we talk a lot about. We have the acronym MVP, minimum viable product, which basically means what's the smallest thing we could build to find out if this is actually a problem
right. And
that other people have.
yeah, and there's the often repeated phrase of don't let perfect get in the way of done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that, yes, that's what I'd say is like get like everybody has. I feel like everyone has an entrepreneurial spirit inside them. It's just a matter of figuring out like what are your roadblocks, what's stopping you, and then just working through those. But I think the first thing I would say is just get get something out there, and it'll probably change. And if you look at a lot of the successful companies today, uh, Weave as an example, Weave started out as a call center. You know, they didn't start with everything that we have right now at Weave in mind.
Yeah.
They started out as something completely different, and then because they had that company, they were able to take advantage of new technologies and new things coming out as they grew. So get something out there, even if it's not exactly what you think you want to build, and then you'll be able to, as momentum builds, you'll be able to take advantage of new opportunities as they come up.
Yeah. So I'm actually reading a book right now by the two founders of IDEO,
Hmm.
um, which is an organization associated with the D School at Stanford, all about creative thinking.
Yeah.
And then open the book talking about how so many people don't think they're creative because they associate creativity with one thing, and that's drawing,
Yeah. With
right?
art. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many other ways to be creative. Um, and I think that's important to call out here just because we have, we as a society, tied the word creativity so much to art.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I kind of did for me myself was equating creativity with innovation. And
Yeah.
when I start to think about it that way, I think I open myself up to allowing myself to call myself creative when I didn't necessarily think I was before. Um, yeah,
Yeah, creativity is problem solving. Like
yeah,
that's what, and so even
yeah,
if you go to the drawing or art, that still is problem solving. It's solving a problem of, beautifying something. But creativity goes way broader than that, where really any solution, if you're looking for a solution, creative solutions are, usually the ones that win out.
Yeah, and I just can't. I want to fast forward a year and see
Yeah,
all of the creativity that comes as a result of this. I
yeah,
think we will be blown away about we might have like the way a smartphone has impacted us in the past decade. The next new smartphone might come as a result of this,
yeah.
right?
I
And
totally agree. Yep.
it's so exciting to me.
Yeah,
Anyway,
me too.
um, I like to end interviews with three takeaways that you have for striving entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, people who feel entrepreneurial at heart. What three things would you like to leave them with?
So I would say first off, talk to customers weekly, and we can use customers in a very loose sense. So, but people who may have the same problem that you have that you're trying to solve, you need to be talking to them on a regular basis and showing them what you've got, even when it's imperfect. I think it's really important uh, to do that and then to iterate based on that feedback. So the card game that I created when I first started it, it was a completely different game. And I started playing it with people. I just wrote it out on with Sharpie on blank cards, and I would play it with people, and change it, and then I'd play it again and change it. And that's the way you're really going to find the the best solution. It's again, and that's scary. Like it's scary to
Wow,
show something you've created to somebody when you know it's not done.
to be
Reed Hoffman,
vulnerable. Yeah.
Reed Hoffman's he created LinkedIn, and he has a quote that I love that says, "If you're not embarrassed by your first version, you waited too long." So you got to get that first version out there when you're still embarrassed by it, because at that point it's easy to make changes.
Yeah.
So that's my first takeaway is talk to people about your idea, um, and find out if it's an idea that is solving a problem. Find out how the people that you're talking to are solving that problem right now in their lives. What's their workaround, and then how is your solution better than that workaround? So that's number one. Number two is find a partner. I think having, and whether you think of it as a co-founder or just a friend that's working on a project with you, I've for sure found that things that I've made are enhanced so much by having someone who thinks differently than me also participating in it. So, and that partner can be your spouse, it can be a close friend, or it can be someone you work with, but just somebody who's in it with you, who's going to feel uh, invested in the project as well. And if you do if you do go to the point where you're maybe raising money or you're actually creating a business out of this idea, that's also someone who can hold you accountable. They So having somebody else who you're checking in with and talking to on a regular basis with helps keep you accountable and helps things moving forward, or helps keep things moving forward. And then my other takeaway, my third one, would be to get comfortable with measuring success in real ways. So um, if you're building an app or something like that, that might be just how many people are using it on a regular basis, how many people are coming back to it and using it again. If you're building a tangible product, you might look at reviews. What are the reviews that I'm getting? Are people sharing this on social media? But figure out ways to measure if the thing you're doing is solving the problem, and then be comfortable changing it if it's not, and figuring out, okay, well, this is the problem I set out to solve. This idea I had isn't quite solving it, so how do I need to change that idea to make it solve that? And that's kind of the principle of being mission driven. So what your what your mission is with the thing you're creating, and you don't lose track of that. Even if you find out that the thing you created isn't solving that mission, you can still tie back to that North Star or that mission and keep moving
Well,
forward.
or you find something else that's solving. I think of the
Yeah,
story around Post-it notes.
yeah,
They were trying to create
yeah. That's a
an
good story.
extremely sticky substance, and they created something that was very temporarily sticky.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great story. And that's so that goes back to the first one of talking to customers. So a lot of times when you're building something, you'll find that people have a different idea of how to use it than what you initially
Yeah.
created it for. And so being open to that and saying like, oh, I thought I was making this, but actually like this other thing is a better use of that.
Well, and it's even the idea. Have you heard the story about Febreeze too?
Yeah,
They were wanting to market it as a like deodorizer, and a woman
with
even
no
came,
fragrance, right?
yeah, and a woman even like came to them in tears saying, "Thank you so much for this product," because I forget what her profession was, but it was something really stinky. And
Mm,
she'd always come home and she couldn't get the odor off, and it changed her life. She felt more comfortable having friends over, and it wouldn't sell,
yeah,
which was so fascinating to me. But
yep,
by adding the odor and by making it the final touch, the cherry on top of the sundae of sprucing up or cleaning up your house, and then it
yeah.
sold.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example of like you do need to be stubborn as an entrepreneur because you need to not take no for an answer. You need to, but at the same time, you have to be flexible. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of the Febreze story, like they were obviously very passionate about being able to create this thing that got rid of odors without a fragrance. Like that's the whole mission they set out to. But when it came down to it, the mission was get rid of odors in a way that's never been done before, and they realized people need a fragrance to think that this is working.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like toothpaste or soap doesn't have to suds to work.
yeah,
We add
yeah,
the suds. Yeah. Anyway, all good notes and things of like how to look at a problem you're hoping to solve, bringing in someone else for their mental contribution, their own creativity, but as well as you said,
hmm
their accountability, and then the last one, and then measuring success. They all tie in really well. Thank you, Jesse.
yeah.
Um, with that, I will leave you and give you back 20 minutes of your day.
All right. Thank you.
I'll probably record an outro summarizing things.
Okay.
Um, but if you wouldn't mind as well, sending me like a 2 to 3 sentence bio,
Cool.
that
Yeah.
would be great. And then I am going to write a blog post for it as well. So anything you want linked there, I can link Chicken Time Warp in Amazon or something.
Cool. Yeah.
Um, and will you send me that book too? I know I'll listen to it
hmm
again in the interview. The what was it?
Spark in the grind. Yeah. I'll send
Thank
that
you.
to you.
Um, and if I need anything else, send me your Instagram and LinkedIn,
Cool.
because we'll probably do some social media posts as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Casey.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to that episode of We've Connected. Make sure to hit subscribe down below so you get notified of any time we add a new episode. We'll catch you next time.